You know, we throw around the phrase feeling lonely all the time,
Yeah.
but have you ever actually stopped to think about what it really means?
Mm.
So today we're going deep into let's talk loneliness, what it feels like and how to heal.
Okay.
It's a fascinating book
Yeah.
that really breaks down this feeling that, well, we all know, but
Yeah.
maybe don't fully get.
Absolutely.
What really jumped out at me from this book was how it breaks down loneliness into these different types.
Yeah.
Like it's not just one size fits all.
Right.
So,
It's more nuanced than that.
yeah, so you've got like intimate loneliness.
Right.
That's the lack of those like deep, close bonds.
Yeah. Those really close connections.
And then there's this whole other thing called relational loneliness.
Yeah.
And that's about missing those everyday connections.
Yeah, like with your colleagues, your acquaintances, people you see on a regular basis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, get this, there's collective loneliness, which
Wow.
is this whole other feeling of being detached from a wider community.
Yeah, a sense of purpose.
More purpose.
It's like you don't belong to something bigger.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not just, you know, being physically alone in your apartment on a Friday night.
Right.
It's so much more than that.
Yeah,
Go
exactly.
way deeper.
And the impact is huge.
Oh.
Yeah. The source cites a study where people experiencing chronic loneliness
Wow.
were 26% more likely to die early.
26%.
That's
insane.
It's a big number.
I knew loneliness wasn't like good for you,
Right.
but I had no idea it could actually
Yeah.
have such a measurable impact on your health.
It really can. It's linked to everything from
Wow.
heart disease to, believe it or not, a weakened immune system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's like,
It's often overlooked, but the research is clear.
yeah.
Loneliness isn't just an emotional state, it's a public health issue.
This is already making me rethink my whole lone wolf persona.
You and me both.
Okay, so how do we tackle this then?
Right.
Does the book offer any solutions?
It does.
Okay.
And it starts with understanding those three types of loneliness we talked about.
Okay.
Because once you pinpoint like where that feeling is coming from,
Yeah.
you can take like more targeted action.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's say someone's feeling that intimate loneliness, that lack of deep connection.
Yeah.
Where do they even begin?
Well, the source reminds us that like building any kind of connection
Yeah.
starts with ourselves.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging those feelings.
Yeah.
Maybe through journaling
Yeah.
and learning to kind of be okay in your own company.
I get that, but sometimes being alone just makes me feel, well, more lonely.
Right.
How does the source address that?
Well, that's where finding activities you genuinely enjoy comes in.
Okay.
Things that make you feel alive, whether it's painting, hiking, or even just like trying out a new recipe.
Oh, okay.
The source calls it cultivating self-connection.
So it's not about forcing yourself to be happy alone.
Right.
It's about finding those things that you
Yeah, it's
genuinely
about
enjoy.
joy. It's about rediscovering those things that make you, well, you,
Yeah.
and nurturing those aspects of yourself.
Okay, that makes sense for that deeper, like, intimate loneliness.
Right.
But what about that relational loneliness?
Yeah.
You know, missing those day-to-day interactions.
Yeah, that's where the source emphasizes those micro connections.
Okay.
Those small, seemingly insignificant interactions we have throughout the day.
Okay.
Like chatting with the barista, saying hello to your neighbor, or even just smiling at someone on the street.
So you're saying, like, instead of just keeping my headphones on and
Yes.
scrolling through my phone, like, those tiny moments
Yeah,
can actually make a difference.
they can. The source cites studies showing that even these brief moments of connection can improve mood and decrease feelings of isolation. It's about being present and open to those little sparks of human interaction.
So put down the phone and actually look people in the eye.
Right.
Got it.
That's a good challenge for all of us.
That's a good challenge for me, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But what about that third type of loneliness?
Right.
The collective one?
Yeah, that one can be trickier
Yeah.
because it's about finding your place in a wider community.
Okay.
But the source offers some really practical advice here.
Okay, let's hear it. I'm all ears.
It suggests thinking about your values and passions.
Okay.
Like, what causes are you drawn to? What activities make you feel like you're part of something bigger?
Yeah.
And then it's about finding groups, communities,
Right.
or even online forums
Yeah.
where those interests are shared.
So it's about finding your tribe,
Exactly.
your people.
Whether it's volunteering for a cause you believe in, joining a book club,
Yeah.
or even signing up for that pottery class you've always wanted to try. The key is to connect with others who share your interests or values.
That's really inspiring.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered all 3 types of loneliness
We have.
and some like practical tips.
Right.
But let's be honest, putting yourself out there can feel daunting,
It can.
especially when you're already feeling down.
Yeah.
Does the source have any advice for like overcoming those hurdles?
It does. And this part is all about challenging our own perceptions.
Oh, here's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
I love a good mental challenge.
It's called reframing loneliness.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that everyone feels lonely sometimes.
Hmm.
It's a normal human emotion, not a personal failing.
It's so easy to feel like you're the only one,
Right.
struggling, but I guess we're all in the same boat.
We are.
Yeah.
And the source encourages us to see these moments of loneliness not as setbacks,
Yep.
but as opportunities for growth.
Opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, it's about using those feelings to understand yourself better.
Mm.
Like, what are those feelings trying to tell you?
Mm-hmm.
What needs might be unmet?
Yeah.
What changes might you need to make in your life?
So it's like looking inward
Right.
and maybe even welcoming those feelings of loneliness as a signal to pay attention to something deeper.
Exactly. It's about shifting our perspective from, I'm lonely, what's wrong with me,
Yeah.
to, I'm feeling lonely, what can I learn from this?
Okay, I'm definitely feeling a shift in my mindset already.
Me too.
But what about the stigma surrounding loneliness? It
Yeah.
feels like something people just don't want to
You're right.
tap with.
It's one of those taboo topics.
Yeah.
But the source is very clear. Breaking that stigma is crucial.
Okay.
It starts with being open about our own experiences
Yeah.
and normalizing those conversations.
I can see how that would help.
Yeah.
If we all talked about it more openly,
Yeah.
it wouldn't feel so isolating.
Right. Exactly. It's about creating a culture where seeking support,
Yeah.
whether from friends, family, or professionals, is seen as a strength,
Oh, okay.
not a weakness.
And that leads us to another really crucial point,
Yes.
actually taking action.
Right.
So what are some tangible steps
Go ahead.
that people can take to start feeling more connected? Besides that inner work we talked about earlier?
The source suggests starting small.
Okay.
It's about those micro connections we were talking about.
Hmm.
Reaching out to someone you haven't spoken to in a while.
Yeah.
Or joining a group or activity that sparks your interest.
Okay.
It might even be as simple as volunteering your time for a cause you believe in.
Small steps, big impact.
That's the idea.
Okay.
And as you start taking those steps, the source emphasizes the importance of celebrating those small victories.
I like that.
Yeah,
It's about acknowledging those moments where you felt brave enough to
that's exactly.
reach out or try something new.
Because those small victories build momentum and confidence,
Right.
making it easier to keep moving forward on that path to connection.
That's really powerful. So it sounds like healing from loneliness it's a multifaceted journey,
It is.
but it's definitely a journey worth taking.
It is, and it's a journey we don't have to take alone.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here,
Oh, yeah.
but there's one question that keeps popping into my mind.
Okay, what is it?
Well, the source talks about these different types of loneliness
Yeah.
and all these great strategies for overcoming them.
Yeah.
But is there a common thread that ties it all together? Like, what's the underlying key to feeling truly connected?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that the source explores in depth.
Yeah.
In fact, it devotes a whole chapter to what it calls the art of presence.
The art of presence.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. What does that even mean?
Well, the source argues that true connection,
Okay.
whether with ourselves or with others,
Yeah.
hinges on our ability to be fully present in each moment.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but honestly, I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Like, my mind is always racing, thinking about the past. Right.
Worrying about the future, how do you actually...
That's a common struggle.
Yeah.
And the source offers some really practical techniques
Okay.
for quieting the mind and grounding yourself in the here and now.
Okay.
Techniques like mindfulness meditation, mindful breathing exercises,
Okay.
and even simply taking a few moments to appreciate the beauty of your surroundings.
So it's about training your mind to focus on what's happening right now
Exactly.
instead of getting lost in those mental rabbit holes.
Yeah, and the source argues that the more we practice this art of presence,
Yeah.
the more connected we feel,
Okay.
both to ourselves and to the world around us.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because how can you truly connect with someone or something
Right.
if you're not fully there?
You can't.
Yeah.
And that's why the source sees this art of presence as like the foundation for all other forms of connection.
Wow. That's a pretty profound insight.
Yeah.
And it really resonates with me because I know that when I'm fully present.
I feel more alive,
Yeah.
more engaged,
Absolutely.
and definitely more connection.
It's like everything just clicks into place.
Yeah.
When you're truly present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this source.
Yeah.
It's not just about offering quick fixes or superficial solutions.
Right.
It's about exploring those deeper underlying principles.
Right. They can truly transform our relationship with loneliness and connection.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to start practicing this art of presence more intentionally.
Me too.
And I bet our listeners are too.
Yeah.
But before we dive into that, there's another key aspect of healing from loneliness that we need to address.
All right.
And that's the role of forgiveness.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is a powerful force.
Okay.
And the source dedicates a significant portion to its role in overcoming loneliness.
Okay. Tell me more about this forgiveness piece.
Well, the source starts by acknowledging that past hurts and resentments can often fuel feelings of isolation and disconnection, whether it's holding on to anger towards someone who wronged us, or even harboring resentment towards ourselves for past mistakes.
I think we all carry some baggage from the past.
We do.
Yeah.
And the source suggests that forgiveness, both of others and of ourselves, is essential for releasing those burdens and creating space for new connections.
That makes sense, but forgiveness can be really hard.
It is.
Especially when you've been deeply hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the source emphasizes that forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event.
Right.
It might take time.
Yeah.
And it might involve working through those emotions with a therapist or counselor. But it's ultimately about choosing to let go of those negative feelings.
Okay.
Not for the other person, but for ourselves.
So it's about freeing ourselves from that emotional baggage.
Exactly. And the source argues that as we forgive, we open ourselves up to more compassion, both for ourselves and for others. And that compassion, in turn, paves the way for more genuine and fulfilling connections.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like forgiveness is a crucial part of the healing journey.
It is.
And one that we might need to approach with patience and self-compassion.
You got it.
Yeah.
And the source reminds us that we don't have to do it alone.
Okay.
There are resources and support systems available to help us navigate this challenging but ultimately liberating process.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered so much ground already.
We have.
But there's one more aspect of the source that I found particularly fascinating, and that's the connection between loneliness and creativity.
Yes.
Okay.
The source actually refers to loneliness as a wellspring of creativity.
A wellspring of creativity. Interesting. Tell me more about that connection.
Well, it argues that those moments of solitude, when we're stripped of distractions and external validation, can actually be incredibly fertile ground for creative exploration.
So instead of dreading those quiet moments, we should embrace them as a chance to tap into our creative potential.
Exactly.
Okay.
The source suggests that loneliness can force us to turn inward.
Yeah.
To confront our deepest thoughts and emotions.
Right.
And to find new ways to express ourselves.
That makes a lot of sense. I know some of my most creative ideas have come to me during times when I felt most alone.
It's a common experience.
Yeah.
The source highlights numerous artists, writers, and musicians.
Oh, wow.
Who have credited their most profound work to periods of intense solitude.
So it's almost like loneliness can be a catalyst for creativity.
Yeah.
A way of accessing those deeper parts of ourselves.
Right.
That we might not otherwise tap into.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the source encourages us to view those lonely moments not as a sign of weakness or failure, but as a potential source of inspiration and growth.
I love that perspective shift.
Yeah.
It's about reframing loneliness as a creative opportunity.
You got it. And the source even goes a step further, suggesting that by engaging in creative activities, we can actually combat feelings of isolation.
Right.
And foster a deeper sense of connection.
How so?
Well, it argues that creative expression can help us connect with our own emotions.
Yeah.
Process difficult experiences. And even build bridges with others who share our creative passions.
So it's a way of connecting with ourselves,
yes,
our emotions, and potentially with other creative souls out there.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the source offers a whole range of creative outlets to explore.
Right.
From writing and painting to dancing and music.
I'm starting to see loneliness in a whole new light.
Yeah, me too.
It's not just something to be avoided or fear.
Right.
It can actually be a powerful catalyst for growth,
Absolutely.
creativity,
Yeah.
and even deeper connection.
It's a beautiful thing
Yeah.
when you look at it that way.
It is.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Exploring the different types of loneliness, the importance of self-connection and forgiveness,
Right.
the power of creativity,
Yeah.
and the role of support systems.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious.
Okay.
Is there one key takeaway from the source that you feel is particularly important for our listeners to remember?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And while there are so many valuable insights in this source,
Yeah.
if I had to choose one,
Okay.
it would be this.
Yeah.
Loneliness is not a life sentence.
Hmm.
It's a temporary state that can be overcome with awareness,
Right.
intention, and action.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And it's a message that I think we all need to hear sometimes.
We do.
So, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question
Right.
inspired by the source.
Okay, I'm ready.
If you could pinpoint the type of loneliness you're experiencing right now, what small step could you take today to start addressing it?
That's a great question to ponder. And remember, even the smallest step can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And as we move into the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we'll explore some more specific strategies for taking action and building those connections that bring meaning and joy to our lives.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for.
Yes. You know, building on what we were just talking about,
Yeah.
one thing that really stuck with me from Let's Talk Loneliness
Okay.
was this whole idea
Yeah.
that action
Mm.
is the antidote to feeling stuck.
It's like you can't just think your way out of it.
Exactly.
You have to actually do something about it.
You got to take action. And
Yeah.
the source
Yeah.
provides a whole toolkit
Okay.
of practical strategies
Nice.
tailored to those different types of loneliness we talked about.
All right, let's dive back into that toolkit.
Okay.
What stood out to you as
Oh.
particularly helpful?
For that intimate loneliness,
Okay.
the source highlights the power of vulnerability.
Ooh, vulnerability.
Yeah, it's about letting our guard down and allowing ourselves to be seen, flaws and all.
That can be scary.
It can be.
What if people reject us?
The source acknowledges that fear,
Okay.
but it also reminds us that true connection requires authenticity.
Okay.
It's about taking the risk to share our true selves
Yeah.
and trusting that the right people will appreciate us for who we are.
It's about finding those people who celebrate our weirdness.
Yes.
Not judge it.
Exactly. And it starts with being vulnerable with ourselves, accepting our own imperfections,
Okay.
and practicing self-compassion.
So self-love is the foundation for authentic connection.
It is.
I like that.
Because the more comfortable we are with ourselves,
Yeah,
the easier it becomes to let others in.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about those who are struggling with that relational loneliness?
Right.
You know, missing those everyday connections.
Yeah. What tools does the source offer for them?
Yeah.
Well, it encourages us to become active seekers of connection.
Active seeking.
Yeah. Instead of waiting for others to reach out, we could take the initiative
Okay.
to strike up conversations,
Yeah.
invite people to hang out, or even just offer a genuine compliment.
So it's about shifting from passive to active,
Yeah.
becoming the initiator of
Yeah.
those micro connections.
Precisely. And the source suggests getting creative with our approach.
Okay.
It could be joining a local walking group, signing up for a cooking class,
Yeah.
or even volunteering at an animal shelter.
Yeah.
It's about putting ourselves in situations where connection
Yeah.
is more likely to happen organically.
I guess it's about creating opportunities for those sparks of connection to ignite.
Exactly.
But what about that collective loneliness?
Right.
That feeling of being disconnected from a larger community or purpose?
Yeah. What strategies does the source offer for that?
Yeah.
That's where the source emphasizes the power of contribution.
Contribution.
Yeah, it's about finding something bigger than ourselves
Okay.
to be a part of.
Yeah.
Whether it's volunteering our time,
Yeah.
donating to a cause we believe in,
Okay.
or simply using our skills and talents to make a positive impact on the world.
So it's about finding our place in the larger tapestry of life.
Yes,
Using our unique gifts to contribute to something meaningful.
you got it. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture.
Right.
It could be something as simple as mentoring a young person, helping an elderly neighbor with their groceries,
Yeah.
or even just offering a listening ear to someone who's struggling.
It's about recognizing that even small acts of kindness
They just
can create ripples of connection
Yes.
that extend far beyond ourselves.
Exactly. And the source argues that when we focus on giving back,
Yeah.
we shift our attention away from our own loneliness
Okay.
and towards something larger and more fulfilling.
It's like that saying, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that sense of purpose and belonging can be a powerful antidote to feelings of isolation and disconnection.
Okay, so we've got vulnerability for intimate loneliness,
Yes.
active seeking for relational loneliness,
Right.
and contribution for collective loneliness.
It's a good toolkit.
Those are some great tools to have in our arsenal.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering,
Okay.
does the source address the fact that sometimes we might need to let go
Yes.
of relationships?
That's a really important point,
Yeah.
and one that the source doesn't shy away from.
Okay.
It talks about the courage to create healthy boundaries.
Ooh, boundaries. That's a topic I could use a refresher on.
The source explains that sometimes
Okay.
holding on to relationships that are toxic or draining
Yeah.
can actually exacerbate feelings of loneliness.
Wow.
It's about recognizing those relationships
Yeah.
that leave us feeling depleted rather than energized, and having the courage to step away.
So it's not about isolating ourselves,
Wow.
but about being selective about who we let into our inner circle.
Exactly. And it's about prioritizing those relationships
Okay.
that bring joy, support, and mutual respect.
It's about creating a space for healthy and fulfilling connections to flourish.
You got it. And the source emphasizes that letting go of those unhealthy relationships
Right.
can actually create space
Yeah.
for new, more positive connections to emerge.
It's about making room for those people who truly get us.
Yes.
And appreciate us for who we are.
Exactly. And that process of letting go,
Yeah.
while often painful,
Right.
can ultimately lead to a deeper sense of self-worth and a more fulfilling social life.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of our social lives,
Right.
being intentional about the connections we cultivate,
Absolutely.
and having the courage to let go of those that no longer serve us.
It's powerful stuff.
But I'm wondering,
Yeah.
does the source talk about the role of technology in all of this?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that the source addresses directly.
Okay.
It talks about the importance of using technology mindfully.
Okay, I'm all ears because I'll be the first to admit I spend way too much time scrolling through Instagram,
Right.
comparing myself to everyone's perfectly curated lives.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
And the source acknowledges that social media can be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can facilitate connection and community building,
Right.
especially for those who are geographically isolated or have limited social mobility.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
it can also fuel feelings of inadequacy and envy,
Right. Exactly.
especially if we're not using it consciously.
So it's not about ditching social media altogether. It's about being more mindful of how we use it.
Exactly. The source suggests setting limits on our screen time,
Okay.
being selective about who we follow, and focusing on using social media to connect with people
Yeah.
who uplift and inspire us,
Right.
rather than those who trigger feelings of comparison
Okay.
or inadequacy.
So it's about curating our online experience to be more supportive of our mental and emotional well-being.
You got it. And it's also about remembering that social media
Yeah.
often presents a highly curated and unrealistic version of people's lives.
That's so true.
Yeah, it's important to keep that in mind.
Right.
And not fall into the trap of comparing our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reels.
It's so easy to forget that what we see online is often just a carefully constructed facade.
Exactly. And the source encourages us to use social media as a tool for connection,
Okay.
not comparison.
So it's about being more intentional with our online interactions.
Yes.
Just like we're learning to be more intentional with our offline interaction.
Okay, it's all about bringing that same level of awareness and intention to all areas of our lives,
Right.
both online and offline.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the holistic approach that let's talk loneliness
Right.
takes to addressing this complex issue.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that loneliness is not just an individual problem, but a societal one.
Right.
And that healing requires addressing it on multiple levels, from individual mindset shifts to systemic changes.
I'm curious, does the source delve into those systemic changes?
It does.
Like, what kind of solutions does it propose?
Okay, well, one of the key points it raises is the need for more community spaces and initiatives that foster connection and belonging.
Like, what kind of spaces?
It suggests things like community gardens,
Okay.
shared workspaces,
Right.
libraries that host social events, and even public parks,
Yeah.
designed with social interaction in mind.
I love that idea. It's
Yeah.
about creating those physical spaces where people can come together
Yes.
and connect organically.
And it's not just about physical spaces.
Yeah.
The source also talks about the need for more programs and initiatives that address social isolation,
Okay.
particularly among vulnerable populations,
Yeah.
like the elderly,
Right.
those with disabilities,
Yeah.
and those experiencing economic hardship.
It's about recognizing that loneliness is not just a personal struggle,
Right.
but one that's often exacerbated by societal factors.
Exactly. And it requires a multi-pronged approach
Right.
that addresses those systemic issues
Yeah.
alongside individual coping mechanisms.
Okay, this is really making me think about how we can all contribute to creating a more connected and compassionate society.
That's the beauty of this source.
Yeah.
It's not just about offering individual solutions.
Right.
It's about sparking a wider conversation
Yeah.
about the epidemic of loneliness and inspiring collective action.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together,
We are.
and that by working together,
Yeah.
we can create a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued.
Exactly. And that's a vision we're striving for, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a vision that fills me with hope and inspires me to take action.
And, one of the most powerful messages from Let's Talk Loneliness is that even small acts of kindness can make a world of difference.
It's like that ripple effect we talked about earlier.
Sure.
One small act
Yeah.
can create waves of connection that extend far beyond ourselves.
Exactly. And the source encourages us to embrace those opportunities for kindness in our everyday lives. It could be as simple as offering a genuine compliment,
Yeah.
lending a helping hand, or
Right.
simply listening attentively
Yeah.
to someone who needs to be heard.
It's about remembering that we all have the power to make a positive impact
Yes.
on the world around us,
Absolutely.
one connection at a time.
Precisely. And as we move toward the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to challenge our listeners to consider,
Okay, what's the challenge?
what's one small act of kindness you can commit to today?
Hmm.
Something that will not only brighten someone else's day,
Yeah.
but also nourish your own sense of connection and purpose.
That's a great challenge.
Yeah.
And I bet those small acts will add up to something truly remarkable.
I believe they will. Because when we choose connection over isolation, we not only transform our own lives,
Right.
but we also contribute to creating a more compassionate
Yeah.
and connected world.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Let's Talk Loneliness,
Yeah.
I'm struck by how much our perception of loneliness has actually shifted. It's gone from this scary,
Right.
shameful thing
Yeah.
to something we can understand, address,
Right.
and even learn from.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how just
Yeah,
reframing something can completely change our relationship to it.
totally.
And this source, I think, really empowers us to do that.
It does. And speaking of empowerment,
Okay.
I wanted to touch on something the source calls the loneliness paradox.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a fascinating concept.
It is.
It's essentially the idea that the more we try to avoid loneliness,
Yeah.
the more trapped by it we become.
It's kind of a,
That sounds counterintuitive.
it's a bit of a head scratcher.
How does that work?
Well, the source explains that when we're constantly seeking external validation or distractions to numb those feelings of loneliness,
Yeah.
we're actually pushing away genuine connection.
So it's like we're building walls instead of bridges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those walls just reinforce the feeling of isolation.
So how do we break free from that paradox?
Uh-huh.
What's the antidote?
The source suggests a pretty radical approach,
Okay.
leaning into loneliness.
Leaning in.
Yeah.
But isn't that what we've been trying to avoid this whole time?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But the source argues that
Okay.
when we face those feelings of loneliness head on,
Yeah.
without judgment or resistance,
Hmm.
we can actually start to heal them.
So it's about acknowledging those feelings,
Yeah.
sitting with them,
Right.
and maybe even learning from them.
Precisely. The source uses this great analogy.
Okay.
It compares it to tending a garden.
Okay.
Like you can't just ignore the weeds and expect beautiful flowers to bloom. You have to address those weeds,
Yeah.
pull them out by the root,
Hmm.
and create fertile ground for growth.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Right.
So it's about turning that loneliness
All right.
into fertile ground for something new to emerge.
You got it. And what emerges might surprise you.
Mm.
The source shares all these stories
Oh, cool.
of people who by leaning into their loneliness,
Okay.
discovered hidden passions,
Wow.
strengthened their self-awareness,
Okay.
and ultimately
Yes.
forged deeper connections with themselves and others.
So it's about turning that perceived weakness
Right.
into a source of strength and growth.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective, I think, is so empowering.
Yeah.
It takes away the shame and fear surrounding loneliness
Yeah.
and turns it into this opportunity for transformation.
That's such a powerful message, and it really speaks to, like, the transformative potential of this whole deep dive.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has, and as we reach the end of this journey together, I'm curious, what's one key message
Okay.
you hope our listeners take away from Let's Talk Loneliness?
I think the most important message is this.
Okay.
You are not alone.
Mm.
Loneliness is a universal human experience.
Yeah.
And it doesn't define you.
Right.
There is hope.
Mm.
There is healing, and there is connection waiting for you
Yeah.
if you're willing to take those first steps.
That's beautifully said.
Thank you.
And I think it's the perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
So as we say goodbye for now,
Okay.
we want to leave you with this final thought from Let's Talk Loneliness.
Okay.
May you find the courage to embrace your loneliness, the wisdom to learn from it, and the strength to connect with yourself and others in a way that brings meaning and joy to your life.
And remember, even the smallest step towards connection can make a world of difference.